This episode is sponsored by Cozi. Did you know that there's an organizing app designed just for families? If you've started to feel busy again, and for a lot of us, I think we never stopped, and your calendar is filling up with more events and kids' activities than all of last year, why not do your future self a favor and get Cozi? Cozi is the #1 organizing app that families use to juggle school schedules, practices, meetings, doctor's appointments, and even a workout or a date night. Imagine that. And it was even named a must-have app for better life by the Today Show. With Cozi, you'll be all set up so everyone knows who is doing what, when, and where. Cozi will even send emails every morning with the day's agenda. How cool is that? So no more missed pickups or double bookings. And here's how it works. Cozi tracks everyone's schedules and events in one place with a shared color-coded calendar, and it's easy to get started. You can even pull in events from your family's personal work and school calendars. The best part? It's free. Just download Cozi Family Organizer from the App Store. That's COZI to get the free app today. You're listening to the Motherhood Unstressed podcast, and I'm your host, Liz Carlisle. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm so glad that you're here. And this week, we are talking all about gratitude. Now, especially if you've been trying to teach your kids about gratitude, good practices to put in place, even just a way of thinking about what's happening to you in life, what's going on, and how to look at it through a more positive and grateful eye, well, then you're in luck, because I'm speaking with best-selling authors Tricia Goyer and Amy Parker, and they've teamed up to spread an attitude of gratitude in their new children's picture book, The Grumbles. Now, by teaching kids and adults how to approach life with a gracious mindset and to seek out the goodness in every situation, they're helping brighten lives in innumerable ways. Now, ultimately, The Grumbles is a sweet, simple, and silly story about how to turn everyday grumbles into gratefulness. Now, I think this is such a perfect episode to have this time of year as we head into Thanksgiving. And for me, even as an adult, it helps to snap me back out of it. Don't go down that negative spiral that's so easy for us, to get into, especially as busy moms. So I loved speaking to them, finding out, behind the scenes, how the book came together, and then also how we can all look at life through a more grateful heart and what that really does, not even in the little moments where you can kind of flip it around, but the greater aspect of it and what you're teaching your children in the process, which is everything. So I hope you enjoy this episode. If you do, please share it with a friend. And of course, thank you for taking those 30 seconds to leave a review. Enjoy the episode. Well, hello, Tricia and Amy. Welcome to the show. I'm so glad you both are here.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you so much.
Absolutely. I love speaking to authors and really getting behind the deeper meaning and the reason for the book. What led you to creating a book on gratitude, a children's book?
Okay. Do you want to start, Amy? Do you want me to start?
You go for it, Tricia.
I actually wrote a book called The Grumble-Free Year. It released a couple years ago. And when I was being interviewed on Amy's podcast, I kept talking about the grumbles, all the grumbles in your home. And Amy and I, we've been friends for years. She was my editor like 15 years ago. So we've known each other a while. And we went to lunch afterwards. And she's like, I just think there's a children's book in there. I can just picture it. The Grumbles. And I was driving home from Nashville, Tennessee, where she lives, to Little Rock, Arkansas. And she's texting me like, oh, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? I would wait till we got to the rest area to check my text. But really, it was birthed from that conversation, talking about how our family, we have 10 kids, but we had 8 at home. My grandma lives with us, and we just wanted to stop grumbling and focus on gratitude. And out of our fails and successes came just the idea for the children's book, just to simplify the idea of gratitude for kids.
Yeah, and Tricia is, like she said, we've been friends for a long time, and she's just so easy to work with. So there was there were no pretenses, no what if she doesn't like my idea? But we just texted back and forth. And we were free to just create this book. And it just, it's just really a condensed version of the Grumble-Free Year. We felt like that this message is so important. The Grumble-Free Year is, of course, written for adults. It's a nonfiction book. And we just thought if we could get this idea into the minds and hands of kids from an early age, it would make that much more of an impact.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And that's one of the things that stood out to me is I could absolutely see myself and see my family in the pages. Like every time I turn a page, I was like reminded of my childhood or like what's happening right now in my house with two little boys. Why do you think we fall into the grumbles and complaining when we are in that state? It feels so rotten.
Yeah, I think we really think like grumbling is the lesser of the two evils of we're not yelling, we're not throwing things, we're not like making these big, emotional outbursts. So we just grumble. And then we think, oh, it's fine. We're just grumbling. Everyone grumbles. Everyone has complaints. No one has a perfect life. But I think what we don't realize is that root of not having gratitude, a root of thinking we have to have things a certain way, our expectations get in the way, that really just colors our whole life. And so, yeah, maybe we're not yelling and upset and having these big, complaining fits, but that underlying grumbling kind of just takes root. And the sooner we can teach kids and then work on it ourselves, definitely. And I think that's what really a thing. It's why it's for families. It's not just to teach the kids. The parents can see themselves on the pages and like, oh, I need to do things differently here.
Yeah. And what she said about expectations too, that was one of the most powerful things that I learned from her when we were talking on the podcast and beyond, is that not having realistic expectations of things, which I'm the worst. I am an optimist and everything is going to be beautiful and dreamy, and then it's not, and I can't figure out why. So a lot of it is our expectations about how we set our kids up and ourselves up for failure, because we have unrealistic expectations about things. And so, if we're going to Disney World in June, we probably should expect it's going to be hot. Mm-hmm. We probably should expect there are going to be some crowds. And if we just lay down that foundation instead of it's going to be the most joyful, magical place on earth, we can be prepared for those expectations, and we can take extra water and a hat, and so preparing for the reality, I think, can also help us to ward off those grumbles as well. Yeah.
How do you navigate that line, though? Because I love that you're an optimist. I think that we should all try to be more optimistic, especially in 2021. How do you navigate the line between, I want to see the best in this situation, I want to manifest the best, but also, keep your expectations in check? Because I find like that really is the clincher right there. It's like, how do we balance this? Yes, everything is great, especially as mothers in the home where we're trying to uplift everyone emotionally, I feel like, or at least keep everything somewhat balanced.
We are the balloons.
Yeah. So is that a form of gratitude? Like, is gratitude the cure for that?
Well, I think, one, there are two sides of that. One, I have just decided that I'm going to be perpetually disappointed because I do always look for the good in everything. But two, I think always looking for the good in everything is rewarding. And two, it helps point everyone else toward that. So I think, like you said, as moms, just keeping our kids focused on that gratitude, especially right now. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I've heard a lot of grumbling lately everywhere, social media. And so finding the good in that, or like Mr. Rogers said, look for the helpers, just finding the good in everything, I think is just so important for us to model, so that our kids can learn to do the same. And I don't know, a balance. I mean, we this world we live in a fallen world. So balance, I think you just have to be continually optimistic. And I don't know that we're going to find that perfect balance here, but I think it's a lofty goal and a good goal.
Yeah. And I think it comes down to giving ourselves and others grace in the matter, and realizing like nobody's perfect. And, after we had 3 biological kids, and when they were adults, or one was a teenager, but 2 were adults, we adopted 7 kids. Wow. And the house was always a mess. It was noisy. I had piles of laundry. And my husband said, did you expect you'd be able to keep up with these 7 kids as you did with the 3 that were biological, that you trained them when they were little to pick up their things? And I'm like, Yes. Like, I thought it was me. Like, I'm such an organized mom. I have this together. We have the systems, but I had to give myself grace. Like, this is a lot. Like, we took on a lot, and then give the kids grace because they hadn't been raised in an environment that taught them to, put things away and not run and scream in the house. It was such a different thing. And so once, like, we have the expectations, like, I just expected things to be like they were with the first three, giving myself grace. And then the kids, like, I should not expect them to know how to do things. And whether they're adopted or whether they're biological, we have to train kids. We have to train them to say please and thank you. We have to train them to look for the good. We have to train them to, like, I'm sorry, that is disappointing. Maybe we can hope that it'll be different tomorrow. I mean, so there's all these training things that we have to do. But I think first we have to realize, like, we're all just human, like every single one of us, big and small, and take a deep breath and it'll be okay. Like, this is not the end. One of our daughters gets especially emotional. Like, this is the biggest thing in the world. I'm like, this is disappointing, but tomorrow things can be different, and just teaching them that.
I love that. And I think, again, it goes back to, like, putting these type of things into a practice. So to the woman listening to this who gets it, she's nodding her head, how can she actually start to put gratitude and just grace into her life, especially during those stressful times when it really matters the most?
Mm-hmm.
One, I think, is the way you start your day, however that is. But, if you have to get up 10 or 15 minutes earlier than the kids or whatever, but to find some sort of peace to start and root your day. I read my Bible every day, but whatever that looks like for whoever's listening, just finding that source of peace and rooting yourself in that before your day even starts. And then I also hang, because in the thick of it, and my kids are older now, so it's a different kind of thick. But when you have little ones running around and you're just trying to keep them clean and not eating sharp objects and alive,
Yeah.
and I get it. And so I hang tangible reminders around. For me, I hang Bible verses or, just a smiley face or just something, write something on a mirror, just those tangible reminders that, because you're not going to be able to just stop and take 10 deep breaths and whatever, when you're just really in the thick of it, you don't think to do that. So part of making it a practice is forcing yourself to do it. And by hanging those tangible reminders around the house, on the refrigerator, on your mirror, whatever, I think you can just bring yourself back to focus on that grace and gratitude and peace.
This episode is also sponsored by Kindred Bravely. Kindred Bravely came to life in 2015 by Deanne Akerson, a mom of two, when she couldn't find any comfortable and functional pajamas to wear. As moms, we have to stick together, which is where Kindred comes from. And Bravely, well, being a mom can be tough. It is definitely not for the faint of heart. Kindred Bravely is devoted to making life easier for pregnant and nursing moms, from breast pads and non-skid socks to nursing bras and the most comfortable pajamas that I've honestly come across. And they use a lot of bamboo fabric in their clothing line, which I adore because it is so supple and so soft. You really have to feel it to understand. And perhaps most importantly than her clothing is Deanne's mission to build a community of moms who support and celebrate each other. In fact, behind the scenes, Kindred Bravely employs more than 24 work-at-home moms who share Deanne's mission and values. If you'd like to try out Kindred Bravely for yourself, be sure to use my code UNSTRESS20 to save 20% off your purchase at kindredbravely.com.
Yeah. And then taking those moments, like getting a regular routine, like around the dinner table, have everyone share what was one good thing that they're thankful for that happened that day. And then when they see us modeling it, because at first they're like, I got to play a video game or whatever. So we're the ones saying, I really enjoyed the sunshine. I heard the birds right when I woke up. I mean, we get them to, like, when we're noticing those things and they start noticing those things and they start repeating the things. So you could either just even say it around the table. I've done gratitude journals with my kids before. Every morning, I homeschool them. So every morning we'd write something that we're thankful for. And, after a while, it seems like there was like my puppy forever with my 6-year-old. But pretty soon they start adding different things. And really it is just training them to pause, to look around, to be thankful. And then also throughout the day in the small moments, that was so nice. Did you see how nice that clerk was? She just smiled at us and catching those moments when they're happening also. Then later, when we're talking about, oh, remember that nice clerk today? We can be grateful for that. So again, for starting the practice of pausing to be grateful and then teaching them to catch it during the day, which the more I feel like I'm teaching them, then I'm remembering to do the same thing. So much of this is like, I want you to stop grumbling. And like, oh my goodness, I'm grumbling about their grumbling right
You're
now.
teaching yourself.
Yes, exactly. It comes back to us because we are the models, and they will do what they see us doing. If we're grumbling in traffic, then they're going to be grumbling when they're mad at their brother and sister or whatever. So really we are the models for our kids.
Yeah, I feel like there's no way around that. It's like they are a direct reflection of our mindset, of the practices that we put into place. And even, something as small as grumbling like that, like it's kind of a scary thing if you step up, but if you also look at it like, man, I have the potential to really shape these people into amazing people for the world, to do good in the world. And it can happen, at the grocery store in that one little tiny moment. Like, I feel like that's so powerful. But I am curious, how did you decide on the archetype of gratitude to be embodied in the grandmother?
Oh, this is a great story. So it's actually after my grandma, and she lives with us. She's 90, almost 92. She'll be 92 in a couple of weeks.
Wow.
And when we were in the middle of our grumble-free year, so what our family had been on a road trip, and there was a lot of grumbling. We had 11 people in a 12-passenger van, and we were going from Arkansas to Seattle, Washington. And so by the time we got there, we sat down at a restaurant, and I'm like, we have to do something different. Like, it's like, you're touching me. It's my turn for the DVD player or whatever. It was just like the whole time. And so my husband and I had already been planning a cruise with our family. They didn't know it, but we're like, hey, why don't we work for a year on not grumbling? And then everyone, like, we know you're not going to be perfect, but if we're all working on it at the end of the year, we'll take you on a cruise. And some kids were like, it'll never happen. And some kids were like, yay! But finally we all decided, like, okay, for a cruise, that'll be worth it. And so we started in August. And in November that year, my grandma who lives with us fell and broke her back. And so she was in the hospital, and she came home right before Christmas. And then we were caring for her in our home. And I homeschool my kids, so we're here all day. So I'm having to pause and get up because she's flat on her back in a back brace. She can't do anything for herself. So I'm always having to pause and go help her. And one day when I was reading out loud to my kids, she's in there, she's singing, she's praying to God, she's thanking God for her family. And my 16-year-old at the time said, Mom, she is in there. She can't move. She's in pain. She can't even sit up. And she is thankful. She's thanking God for her life and for her family. And my 16-year-old said, we grumble about the dumbest things. Mm-hmm. And it was that moment when all of us just realized, like, it's a choice. And my grandma, she also has dementia. So someday she won't remember that her back was broken. But she remembered to be thankful. She remembered to be grateful. And that was years of her, going to church or reading her Bible or praying. That gratitude had been in her and built in her, and it just became a habit. And when she's flat on her back, that's the habit that came out. So that moment, I think, was really a turning point, because before we were trying but really not getting anywhere, but seeing that grandma in the bed, being thankful even when she shouldn't be, made a big difference. And so when Amy and I were talking about the book, Amy's like, I don't remember which one of us said it, but one of us said it, like, there needs to be the grandma that brings gratitude. And it was like, yes, that's it. So it really is that example. I think all of us need an example of our life, or we know someone that just exudes gratitude, and it in our book, it's the grandma. And so I think that really just shows that one person can make a huge influence in our lives.
And in the book, the grandma, so for kids, we thought it was important to model these things so that, like you said, you can see yourselves in the pages of the book. So we show the kids grumbling, we show and the parents grumbling, we show their different grumbling styles. But then when grandma comes in, she combats all of that grumbling. She's faced with the same situation that each of those family members are faced with, but she shows them a different way to respond. And so in doing that, even though they're, tied up in these characters in a book, but in doing that, we show kids, okay, here are the situations, here's how you could respond, but this makes no one happy. Mm-hmm. And then here's another way that you could respond, and look how much peace it brings to your home. So the grandma just really models that positive practice of gratitude versus the negative practice of grumbling.
Yeah, and that's honestly one of my favorite things about books is even if you don't have a person in your life who's modeling, or even, if they're not perfect, you have a book that you can read and that's your model. That's your way out. That's your different view of the world. And that for a child, that could change their lives, and even to the mother who just picked it up because the illustrations are adorable and like they like the title. It's like, oh, it's just such a way up and out, and it's just something so simple as a book. And so I'm grateful for this book. But it is clear also that faith is a huge part. It's a huge theme in the book. Why was that important for you to have in the book? And I know nowadays, people might shy away from that or not want to include that to, just for whatever reason. Why was that important to have in there?
I know for me, my life really changed when I had faith in my life and I realized I need God and I can't do things on my own. I was a teen mom. I had my oldest son at 17 and I was doing whatever I wanted. And once I realized maybe there is a better way. Maybe I can look at a different plan than just doing whatever I want. My life changed. And so that impacts my day. My day when I'm feeling like grumbling, just send up that quick prayer, give me strength or give me peace and I feel different. I feel like pausing to ask for help, to seek help, to realize I don't have to do this on my own really just changes everything. And so the faith element is yes, we can say, don't grumble, be thankful, but we also can turn to God. I turn to God for help and that just changes everything.
Yeah. And same here. The faith element is not just an element that we decided to put in there. It is our reality. It is how we stay grounded in gratitude. And I understand that people do shy away from it these days and in a way to not be offensive. But for Tricia and I, that's all the more reason to share it because there is peace in that. And there is, we want everyone to find that same, faith that we have, because that's how we've made it. That's how we stay grounded. That's how we are grateful. That's how Tricia survives with 10 kids and homeschooling and writing 47 books a year and grandma. Yeah. So,
wow.
But we all have our struggles. And so for me, I couldn't, there's no other way.
Yeah. I totally get that. And I resonate with that. We need all the help what we can get. And, studies show that people who have faith live longer, they're happier, they're more optimistic. And even during hard times, they are the ones that survive. So I think there's something to it, even from a scientific standpoint.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we're almost out of time. For the woman listening to this, what do you really want her to remember from this talk?
The purpose of this book is not for, when you close the book, you're going to turn around and you're going to be a perfect mother and your kids are all going to be grateful. It's just the reminder. It's just placing that little seed that, okay, there is a different way to do this. There is the possibility of having gratitude in each day. And just by every time, you read this book, it brings an awareness of this different way to do things. So even if there's not, an overnight transformation, if all of your kids don't turn from caterpillars to butterflies, it's just that reminder. It just plants that seed and brings an awareness to, oh, wait, I am grumbling like the mom in the book. And I should be more grateful, or not should. I don't like shoulding people, but there is a way to bring more peace and contentedness to my home. And so just really planting that seed, bringing an awareness to the grumbles that all of us do every day and finding a better way to do that.
Yeah. I was recently asked to talk about how to raise successful kids who grow into, caring adults. And so I'm like, this is a big topic. So really thinking about it and I have 3 adult kids that are, successful and have families and are doing great. And then we have the ones that we're adopting that we're still in process. But thinking about it, I talk to my kids and I'm like, remember the moment, when I had this big aha moment and I had this talk about gratitude or this, and they're like, no, because that's not meaningful to them. But what has, like Amy was saying, it's planting the seeds and watering it and planting another seed and watering it. So really it's the dailiness of being grateful, the dailiness of kindness, the dailiness of having joy. All those things over time make a big impact. It's not going to be the one moment when we sit down and give the lecture about being grateful and how we need to be grateful and stop grumbling. That's not going to do anything. They're not going to even remember that when they're adults. But when they learn the habits of gratitude, the habits of caring for others, the habits of looking for the good, the habits of prayer or faith, or any of these things over time, that really grows them into these adults that can have peace in the world and give to others and care for other people and be grateful. And so, and that's what it is, reading a book, sitting down, reading a book, and those little seeds are planted. And over time, that's what really takes root.
Motherhood is definitely a marathon and not a sprint.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, would you say that that's what motherhood has taught you the most? I mean, what has motherhood revealed in your life that you never expected?
I think it's that, we can have these big poignant moments with our kids but that's really not what they walk away with. Like Tricia said, it's the daily practices. And so when I had a friend who the other day was telling me something big that her daughter had done and gotten in trouble, and I can remember feeling that when my son did something similar when he was like 6, and then again in high school, I felt like, oh my gosh, he's going to grow up and be a serial killer. And he's not. He's happy and successful and not a serial killer. And that just so moms, when you're feeling that moment, when there's something overwhelmingly bad that is really, in the grand scheme of things, not horrible, that happens, you can it's the long run. It's the marathon that we're just trying to get to the next day. Deal with the bad thing with the best you can, get wisdom from that bad thing, and then move on to the next day and just keep your kids alive all over again. And it's the marathon. And when you raise up a child in the way they should go, and when they're old, they won't depart from it. I've seen that, take place in my own kids' lives, and I firmly believe it to be true.
Yeah. And it is those habits and routines. And I think first we need to figure out what's priorities. And for me and my husband, we figured out like dinner around the table. Going to church together, reading books out loud. So I'm reading Little House on the Prairie to my 10-year-old boy right now at bedtime. Those habits we think aren't the big things, but later when our kids come home, on Sunday afternoons, when my son's here with his kids, they want to have dinner around the table. My daughter lives in Europe. She's married, has 2 kids and lives in Europe. And when she comes over, she's like texting me, or messaging me, after she gets off the plane, Mom, can you make tuna casserole for dinner? I'm like, that is the most boring thing ever. But to her, tuna casserole around the table as we're all talking about our day is home to her. It's peace to her. So we think that it's going to be, those big things or the big baseball tournament or all these things. But really it is those habits of reading at bedtime, of, having dinner together, of, Sunday afternoon is for church and family or whatever it is. It is those habits that carry with them, that they care about, and that really kind of build who they are. And when I see my son reading out loud, at nighttime, he's like, oh, I'm reading this book, The Chronicles of Narnia, to his kids that his dad read to him, by C.S. Lewis. It's like, okay, this is what it's all about. It was those little things that I didn't realize at the time or end up being the big important things in our kids' lives.
That just gave me chills. I love it. And to hear that, as a mom of 2 young boys now, it is invigorating. It is encouraging and motivating. It's like, man, they did it. They did a great job. I can do it too. That's really how I feel. I honestly feel that way. So thank you that you're scaling that, to women all over the world who are in the same position. I mean, the work that you're doing, the book that you're putting out is meaningful. It does matter. So thank you from all of us for putting in the work each and every day. We appreciate it. We really do. Tricia Goyer and Amy Parker, the book is The Grumbles. Let us know how to find you guys online and where to get the book.
Yep. Mine is just TriciaGoyer.com. Tricia is Tricia Goyer.com. And the book is available anywhere books are sold.
And I'm AmyParkerBooks.com, and from there are links to all my socials. So connect with me on socials, but all of that will start at AmyParkerBooks.com.
Beautiful. Well, ladies, this was such a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for the book. Thank you for your time, and keep doing an amazing job as mothers.
Well, thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
You have been listening to the Motherhood Unstressed podcast. Please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast.